The day my eldest sister asked me to take her place in the palace, I knew she had been reborn. My mother's eyes welled up with tears. Your sister is so innocent. How could she possibly endure life in the palace? Once she's in there, it'll be a matter of life and death. Wiping away her tears, my grandmother spoke to me in such a loving voice for the first time. Ninger, why don't you take one's place in the palace? She's not like you. She won't be able to handle life within those palace walls. In a past life, my eldest sister, who was originally supposed to marry into the Yunning Marquisate household, heard that I was going to enter the palace and in tears begged to switch places with me. What did they say at the time? Wan Rang is so innocent. If she were to marry into a family like the Marquis of Yunning, they'd surely devour her until there wasn't a bone left. Grandmother also said, then let Wan Rong and Ning swap places. They're sisters in the same family. They should look out for each other. Later, less than a year after my eldest sister entered the palace, she was banished to the cold palace for accidentally pinching the emperor while attending to him. And yet I became the lady of a first-rank marquisate who had enjoyed exclusive favor for decades and basked in boundless glory. With tears in my eyes, I looked at my father, who was seated in the seat of honor. Do you also agree to let me take my eldest sister's place in the palace? He just let out a long sigh. His cold tone instantly sent a chill through my body. Let's settle on that, then. The new emperor's moods are unpredictable. Once you're in the palace, be on your toes. And once you've won his favor, don't forget all the support the Yi family has given you over the years. As I looked at those faces, some insincere, some indifferent, the last shred of familial affection remaining in my heart was shattered. In both of my lifetimes, I've been the only child in my family who could be sacrificed at any moment. In that case, I'll make you regret ever giving birth to me. The Yi family has 3 daughters. The eldest legitimate daughter, Yi Wan, was warm and generous, though unfortunately, her appearance was unremarkable. The youngest daughter, Yi Wanqing, is innocent and adorable and is only 8 years old. As for me, Yi Ning, I am the second daughter of the Yi family. Yet, I possess a beauty that stands in stark contrast to that of the other Yi family members. Because Yi Wan had been plain-looking since childhood, her elders doted on her all the more. Whenever there's something good, it always goes to her first. I don't get a turn until everyone else has had their pick. The same goes for daily necessities, jewelry, and clothing. The same is true even when it comes to marriage. In her previous life, Yuan had already been betrothed to the heir of the Ho family, but because she wanted to enter the imperial palace, her family swapped me for her. Later, after she fell out of favor with the emperor, she was banished to the cold palace where she died of illness within a few months. The whole family believed that Yuan had taken the blame for me and that the days when I alone enjoyed the crown prince's favor should have belonged to her. This time, however, it was Yuan Rong who was originally slated to enter the palace. Everyone knows that the new emperor is unpredictable and tyrannical by nature, and serving him is a matter of life and death. Because of the harrowing experiences she had endured in her previous life, Yuan would rather die than enter the palace. Yet, my dearest family still resolutely chose to sacrifice me to take her place. Sitting in front of my vanity mirror, I looked at the gorgeous face I'd been blessed with and let a slight smile play on my lips. Starting today, I'm done being the daughter you can just push around however you like. The door swung open and my mother walked in with Yuan Rong. Seeing me still sitting in front of the mirror, she couldn't help but frown. You're going to the palace first thing tomorrow morning. You better get some rest so you won't look haggard tomorrow and risk the emperor taking a dislike to you. Yuan Rong reflected in the mirror, raised an eyebrow, a fleeting, barely perceptible glimmer of satisfaction flashing in her eyes. In my past life, I married into the Marquisate household in her place and enjoyed exclusive favor for decades. My husband had no one but me by his side until his death, and he never took a concubine. With such a wonderful husband all to herself for the rest of her life, how could she not be delighted? But what she didn't know was that Xiao Xuan wasn't interested in women at all, and was nothing more than a decorative ornament and a tool for bearing children in the Ho family's household. All that affection and special treatment were just for show. My little sister is so beautiful. Once she enters the palace, she's sure to be the emperor's favorite and bring honor to the Yi family. Yuan Rong leaned close to my cheek, gently stroking my face with the back of her hand, smiling broadly. Her hand was smooth and cold, like a venomous snake flickering its tongue, slick and dangerous. I couldn't help but get goosebumps. Thank you for your kind words, sister. In that case, I wish you a lifetime of love and happiness with your husband once you marry into the Marquiate household. Yuan Rong sat up straight and let out a soft laugh. Of course. Looking at her smug face, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. It's more like I've wasted my whole life. All right, Ronger, let's go. Don't disturb your sister while she's resting. With that, my mother took Yuan Rong by the hand and turned to leave. I watched her walk away and called out to her, Mom. Upon hearing this, she turned around, her brow furrowed and her face full of impatience. What's wrong now? Do you regret it? I asked softly. Just say you regret it. As long as you say right now that you can't bear to be apart from me and that you love me too, I'll forgive you. My eyes filled with tears as I looked at her with anticipation. If she just said something, or even gave me a hug right now, I'd forgive her. Why are you bringing this up now? Are you having second thoughts? How can you be so selfish? One wrong is your older sister and you're so reluctant to do even the small favor for her. I really raised you for nothing. She cried. But it wasn't for me. I tilted my head back and took a deep breath, holding back the tears that were about to well up in my eyes. Mother, please go home. I'll go to the palace tomorrow. My mother wiped away her tears, gave me a long, deep look, and turned to leave. This outcome seems to have been expected. When they told me I was to go to the palace in place of Yuan Rong, I was reluctant. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, I just want to live for myself for once. I don't want to be Xiao Xuan's wife in name only, and I certainly don't want to deal with a capricious tyrant. I knelt on the ground, crying so hard I could hardly breathe. I begged them that if Yuan Rong wanted to marry into the Marquiate household, I would gladly give up my place for her. But please do not send me into that ruthless imperial palace that devours people and spits out nothing but their bones. But my mother just turned her face away coldly, refusing to even glance at me. My grandmother, looking even more disgusted, kicked away my hand as I tried to hold onto her lap. Only her 8-year-old half-sister, Yuan Qing, was crying so hard she could hardly catch her breath. She knelt on the ground and wrapped her tiny body tightly around me. Grandma, Mom, please don't let second sister go to the palace. If she goes in there, she'll lose her life. Big sister said the emperor kills people. My mother's expression turned cold and she raised her hand and slapped her across the face. Shut up. How many heads do you think you have to lose by making things up about the emperor? Don't drag your whole family down with you. Guards, lock her up. She's not to be released without my orders. The third younger sister was dragged out, shouting loudly as she left. Second sister, don't cry. I'll help you. Thinking back to that time when she was crying with her face covered in snot, I couldn't help but smile. My maid Chun Tao wiped away a tear and tucked the corner of my blanket in for me. Don't worry about it, young lady. Get some rest early. With that, she turned away, sobbing softly, and turned off the light. I closed my eyes, but I just couldn't fall asleep. I don't know how much time had passed when I heard a faint, barely audible sound coming from outside the window. Second sister, it's me. I'm here to take you away. It was the voice of the third younger sister, Yuan Qing. My heart skipped a beat and I quickly got up and opened the door. Yuan Qing was wearing a thin jacket and her little face was bright red from the cold. Second sister, hurry up and get dressed. I am here to save you. I rubbed my hands together to warm them, then cupped her little face in them. Weren't you locked up? How did you get out? Yuan Qing lifted her rosy little face. I snuck out while the matron watching over me was asleep. Second sister, hurry up and pack your things. Come with me. If we wait any longer, I'm afraid the matron will find you and then you won't be able to leave. Watching her speak to me so earnestly with that innocent little face of hers, a wave of indescribable sadness washed over me. Yuan Qing's biological mother died when she was born. Although she had nominally been living with my mother all these years, her life had been very difficult. And yet, even though this child was barely scraping by herself, she was willing to risk her own life to save me from a desperate situation. Yet those closest to me, the people I've always cherished most, have treated me coldly, as if I were nothing more than a tool. I held her tiny body close and said, my voice choked with emotion, my second older sister is going to the palace, so she's not leaving. Wanqing looked at me with a lost expression. In just an instant, her eyes filled with tears. Is second sister worried that if you leave, it'll bring trouble to father and mother? But big sister says the palace is full of man-eating monsters. If you go in there, they'll devour you. Second sister, you better run. I don't want you to die. I shook my head with a faint smile. I won't die. I'll come back alive to pick you up. That night, my sister and I held each other and cried for a very, very long time. Early the next morning, when my mother came in, she saw 2 pairs of eyes swollen like peaches. You little brat. Who gave you permission to come here? Someone. Take the third young lady to the ancestral hall and make her kneel there to reflect on her actions. She won't be let out until she learns her lesson. And you know full well you're going to the palace today. Yet you've cried your eyes out like this. Who are you crying for? My mother pointed at us angrily and shouted at us. Before long, the 2 old women standing nearby rushed over. Before they could reach Wanqing's arm, I pulled the hairpin from my hair and stabbed one of the old women in the arm. The sharp hairpin pierced deep into the flesh. When it was pulled out, a stream of fresh blood gushed from the wound. The old woman let out a scream of pain. My mother, her eyes filled with anger, stared at me in disbelief and staggered back 2 steps. Are you trying to defy heaven or something? I took a step forward, holding the blood-stained hairpin, and said with a cold smile, does mother want to try out my hairpin herself to see if it's sharp? Her face instantly turned pale, drained of all color. She pointed at me with trembling fingers, and tears streamed down her cheeks. You're actually talking to me like this just for her sake. I can't believe I raised such an ungrateful, disobedient brat like you. As if she were utterly disappointed in me, she cried her heart out. In the past, I might have blamed myself for her tears, but now when I look at these tears again, all I feel is numbness and a coldness that can never be warmed. Mother, there's no need for that. Your tears are of no use to me now. She gradually stopped crying and the sadness in her eyes was soon replaced by cold indifference. The people from the palace are already here. Hurry up and get ready to go and keep them waiting too long. I held Wanqing in my arms, neither of us moving a muscle. And after a moment of stalemate, she spoke first. What exactly do you want? I looked up at her and said with a half-smile, I'll go to the palace if you want me to, but I have 2 conditions. First, the Yi family's assets will be divided into 3 equal shares with each of us 3 sisters receiving 1 share. Second, since Wanqing has been raised by my mother all these years, it's time to grant her the status of a legitimate daughter. The Yi family has no sons. So if I don't fight for it, the entire estate will go to Yuan Rome. My parents would never let the Yi family's business fall into my hands or those of my 3rd younger sister. Also, even though the 3rd younger sister was raised by our mother, she is still considered a concubine-born daughter. There's a huge difference in future marriage prospects between a legitimate daughter and a concubine's daughter. I want to fight for her on her behalf before I leave. My mother looked at me in disbelief, her anger turning to laughter. You're pushing your own mother to this extent just for the sake of a child born to that lowly servant girl. Yi Ning, has your conscience been devoured by a dog? I can give you a share of the Yi family's business. But as for her, don't even think about it. Your sister is about to get married and all of this is meant to support her in the future. Looking at her face contorted with anger, I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't quite put into words. They say there's no mother in the world who doesn't love her child. But my biological mother, she really doesn't love me. It doesn't matter. You have the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to discuss this with father. After that time has passed, if the Yi family is accused of deceiving the emperor or defying his edict, I hope father and mother will not hold me responsible. My mother's face flushed red with anger, and she glared at me with hatred. Why go to all this trouble for a complete stranger? What do you stand to gain if the Yi family is implicated? I let out a cold laugh and stared back at her intently. Being happy is the greatest benefit of all. Don't you think, Mom? Perhaps the commotion here was so loud that it startled my grandmother and my father in the front yard. Before long, the 2 of them burst through the door, flanked by their servants. Grandma shuffled into the room. even at my advanced age. I'll risk my life today to teach you, you unfilial wretch, a lesson on behalf of your parents. As he spoke, he raised his cane to strike me, but Wan Qing, who was standing nearby, rushed forward to shield me. Grandma, please don't hit my second older sister. The thick-handled cane struck her frail shoulder with a heavy thud. Wan Qing let out a cry of pain and collapsed to the ground. There was not a trace of pity or tenderness in my grandmother's eyes as she raised her hand to strike me again. Hatred welled up inside me. I reached out, snatched the cane, and shoved it backward. She lost her balance when she was pushed and fell heavily to the ground. Ah! Suddenly, a shriek escaped her hoarse voice. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. My father and mother screamed and rushed over. Call the doctor quick. Call the doctor. Watching this chaotic scene, I felt a surge of satisfaction. After enduring it for 2 lifetimes, this is the first time I've fought back. It would also be the lightest punishment they could receive. In the end, my father grumbled, but agreed to my request. Wan Qing's status in the family genealogy was changed to that of the youngest legitimate daughter. The Yi family's assets were divided into 3 equal parts. With the clan elders acting as witnesses, I took what was mine. Since Yi Wan Qing was still very young, her share was entrusted to a highly respected clan elder for safekeeping. Can you leave now? I flashed a triumphant smile. Of course, my revenge has only just begun. My dear family, get ready. On the very night I entered the palace, I was assigned to serve as a concubine. I know that my beauty is my greatest weapon. I'm going to make the most of this weapon. I'm going to make the family members who've hurt me regret giving birth to me until the day they die. The first time I met the emperor, I was extremely nervous. After all, his reputation for tyranny has been deeply ingrained in my mind for 2 lifetimes. But I know I have to hold back. The warmth of the red candles fills the room. The emperor massaged my slender, fair, and delicate shoulders and spoke with a hint of playfulness. My beloved consort, it seems you are not entirely satisfied with my performance. I gave a shy smile. But the words I spoke made even the emperor blush. I'd practiced the smile countless times ever since I found out I was going to the palace. Erlang is incredibly rough. I couldn't quite handle it the first time. Don't do that again next time. Sure enough, upon hearing this, a hint of an indescribable emotion flashed across the emperor's eyes. What did you just call me, Erlang? The emperor is my husband. That's how wives in other families address their husbands. I leaned against his shoulder and answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The emperor's reputation for tyranny had long been an unspoken fact among the officials and the women of the harem. Among the 3,000 beauties, there was not a single one who did not love him. Yet there was not a single one who did not fear him. This must have been the first time someone had expressed their love and dissatisfaction for him so bluntly right in front of him. Upon hearing this, the emperor indeed burst out laughing. How novel. Truly novel. Very well. I grant it. From now on, I shall be my beloved concubine's husband. I raised my eyebrows and gave his cheek a gentle peck. You're the best, my husband. From now on, you're not allowed to call me beloved concubine, you have to call me Ninger. Ninger. The emperor stepped back to put some distance between us and looked me up and down. Is your name Ninger? Before I could answer, he continued. Why do I recall that the name of the daughter from the Yi family who was sent to the palace was Yuan? Upon hearing this, I pursed my lips and lowered my eyes, feigning sadness. My father and mother didn't want our eldest sister to enter the palace, so they sent me instead. The emperor paused for a moment, raised an eyebrow, and chuckled softly. Do you realize that tampering with the list of candidates for the palace without authorization is a crime of deceiving the emperor? I wrapped my arms around his waist, nuzzled my face against his chest, and said, my voice choked with emotion, I know that, Your Majesty, which is why I'm so afraid and didn't want to go to the palace. But when I begged them in tears, they accused me of being unfilial and disobedient. But later, the moment I saw Erlang, my fear vanished. Now I actually find myself somewhat grateful to my parents for being so strict. A tear fell from her eye at just the right moment, wetting the emperor's chest. I felt his arms tighten around me. Why is that? He said in a deep, resonant voice. Because I don't think you're as cruel as they say you are. You're very kind to me, kinder than they are. I don't know which of my words touched him, but after that, he didn't say another word, just held me close many times. Early the next morning, just as I had finished washing and dressing, eunuch Wang, a close aide to the emperor, arrived bearing an imperial edict. In just one night, I rose 2 ranks, from a lowly noble lady in the harem to become consort Ning. Even the palace where I used to live was renamed after me. For several days after that, the emperor stayed at Ning Palace. Another 6 months passed and I was promoted to the rank of imperial consort once again overnight. I became the envy of everyone in the harem. I was the center of attention and my fame and favor knew no bounds. I became the first true favorite concubine since the emperor ascended the throne. On the day of the Lantern Festival, a banquet was held at the palace. Before the banquet began, the women of the Yi family came to Ning Palace to pay their respects to me, accompanied by Yuan Rong's in-laws. This was the first time I had seen them again since I entered the palace. I leaned back against the couch and watched the group of people walking toward me out of the corner of my eye. Yuan Rong, who was 6 months pregnant, walked slowly, supported by my mother and her mother-in-law. The Countess of Yongning leaned close to my ear and asked softly, "If your highness does not wish to see them, I will have them thrown out." I waved my hand. "No, thank you." The group slowly approached me and respectfully knelt to pay their respects. I calmly held the imperial glass cup and sipped my tea gently, without looking at them. Before long, Yuan Rong's body swayed slightly. She was clearly having trouble staying on her knees. My mother glanced at her from the side and immediately spoke, her heart aching for her. "Ninger, your sister isn't feeling well." Before she could finish speaking, one of the court ladies snapped at her. "How dare you? Once inside the palace, there is only the relationship between sovereign and subject. How dare you address her highness by her given name?" My mother shuddered slightly and bowed her head even lower, but her tone remained as firm as ever. "Yes, this humble servant has overstepped her bounds. Your Imperial Highness, the Crown Prince's wife is not feeling well at the moment. Please be understanding and do not put her in a difficult position." Even after all this time and even though I hold a high-ranking position, my mother is still willing to go to any lengths to stand up for Yuan Rong. That truly is the heartfelt love of a mother. I let out a cold laugh and tilted my chin upward. "Sister, mother said I've been giving you a hard time. Is that true?" Yuan Rong looked up, biting her lip with an expression of resigned acceptance. "Your Highness, you're joking. How could there be any awkwardness between us sisters? However, I know that your highness still holds a grudge against my mother because she forced me to enter the palace to accompany his majesty when I did not wish to do so. I offer my sincere apologies to your highness here, and I implore you to be magnanimous and no longer hold this against my mother." As soon as the words left his mouth, the concubines who had come to pay their respects all pricked up their ears. Some looked surprised, while others seemed to take malicious pleasure in the situation. Everyone knows I'm currently in the emperor's good graces. If they found out that I never wanted to enter the palace in the first place, given the emperor's temperament, falling out of favor and being banished to the cold palace would be the least of my worries. I might even be killed with a single sword stroke. But they didn't realize that I had already informed the emperor of this on the very day I entered the palace. My mother tugged nervously at Yuan Rong's sleeve. Even the lady of the Marquis of Yunning, who had been keeping to herself the whole time, turned pale and scolded him in a low voice. "What kind of nonsense is that?" Chen Tao glared at them angrily. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince's wife clearly has ulterior motives. If these words reach the Emperor's ears, I'm afraid." Seeing the smug look on Yuan Rong's face, I said, "Never mind. Since she brought it up herself, it saves me the trouble of leading her on." The banquet began, and as the highest-ranking woman in the harem, I naturally sat next to the Emperor. As the music played, the Emperor cast only a few glances at the people below before turning his gaze to me. I turned my face away and forced a smile. "What is Erlang looking at?" He stared at me without saying a word, and after a long moment, he suddenly pulled me onto his lap and whispered in my ear, "Is my beloved consort unhappy today?" I pouted and didn't answer him. I just struggled to get off his lap and sit up straight. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him staring intently, his face grim at the location of the Yunning Marquisate below. Secrets can't be kept in the harem. Someone has already passed on Yuan Rome's words to him on my behalf. That was fast. Halfway through the banquet, the ministers and their families raised their cups one after another and offered words of good fortune to the emperor. The emperor tilted his head back and drank it all in one gulp, his voice tinged with coldness. I see that all of you ministers are drinking. Why is it that only the wife of the Crown Prince of Yunning is not drinking? Are you dissatisfied with the banquet I have hosted today? Xiao Xuan, feeling deeply humbled, hurriedly stood up and bowed. Your Majesty, please do not be angry. My wife is currently pregnant and should not drink alcohol. I hope your Majesty will forgive us. The emperor snorted coldly. I see. I've heard that the Crown Prince and his wife are deeply in love. And now it seems those reports are indeed true. Xiao Xuan gave an awkward little smile and was just about to speak when he heard the emperor continue. But I've heard that this morning, the Crown Prince's consort spoke disrespectfully in the Ning Palace and offended my imperial consort. May I ask on whose authority is the Crown Prince's consort acting? Is it that of your Yunning Marquisate? Upon hearing this, the family of the Marquis of Yunning was so terrified that they immediately knelt down. Xiao Kai, the Marquis of Yunning, bowed his head to the ground and replied tremblingly, Your Majesty, please calm your anger. We would not dare. The emperor slammed his hand on the table. I don't think so. I think she's quite bold. She even dares to speak her mind to the woman by my side. What is there that she wouldn't dare to do? Guards, cut out the tongue of that loose-lipped man. To serve as a warning to others. The emperor had become much more moderate in recent months. So much so that everyone almost forgot that the former emperor had been a tyrant who killed people at the drop of a hat. In an instant, the once bustling hall fell deathly silent, as everyone feared that the slightest sound might provoke the emperor's wrath. At that moment, guards had already stepped forward, ready to escort Yuan Rong out to be executed. Your Majesty, please calm down. Your Highness, please say something. Yuan Rong is your own sister. The voice echoing through the hall was my mother's. Seeing her weeping bitterly for Yuan Rong filled my heart with an indescribable hatred. Your Majesty, please calm down. I reached out and took the emperor's hand and threw tear-filled eyes at him. I watched him shake my head. I'm sure my sister just spoke without thinking. She didn't mean it. Besides, she's pregnant, so it really wouldn't be appropriate to punish her. The emperor clasped my hand in return, and his body, which had been tense just a moment ago, instantly relaxed. Since my beloved consort has personally pleaded for mercy, I shall spare her this time. Before the Yi family and the people from the Marquis of Yunning's mansion could let their guard down, the emperor spoke again. One must be punished for one's mistakes. It seems to me that the Crown Prince's wife must be relying on the influence of the Marquisate household and the Yi family to dare to openly defy the imperial consort. Since that is the case, in my view, the Crown Prince of the Yunning Marquisate has failed to maintain strict discipline within his family. Even if he were to inherit the Marquisate in the future, he would likely face domestic strife. It would be better to have the second son of the Xiao family assume the position of Crown Prince instead. As for the Yi family, you have failed to raise your daughter properly and have shown her excessive favoritism. You are to step down from your position as Minister of Revenue for the time being effective immediately. You are demoted 2 ranks and your salary is reduced for 1 year. If you cannot even manage a small family like the Yi family, how can I possibly trust you with the Ministry of Revenue, the Treasury of the Empire? The crowd fell silent for a moment. The vast hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My father wiped the sweat from his forehead and bowed his head in gratitude. Although Xiao Xuan was deeply reluctant, he had no choice but to follow suit and bow in gratitude. But the way he was clenching his back molars tightly showed that the resentment in his heart had reached its peak at that moment. I silently scoffed to myself. Yuan Rong, are you ready to face your husband's wrath? After dealing with everyone, the emperor resumed the affable demeanor that had become familiar to everyone in recent days. Only then did the crowd below gradually relax, and a hint of festive atmosphere finally returned to the hall. Only the 2 tables, one from the Yi family and the other from the Marquis of Yunning's household, had faces as somber as if they were paying respects at an ancestral grave. The emperor stared down at the crowd for a moment, then suddenly leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Does that make you feel better now, my queen?" I tilted my head and gave a sweet smile. Is His Majesty doing this to vent my anger? The Emperor raised his handsome eyebrows. Can't Ninger tell? I leaned in and gently brushed my lips against his cheek. Just a fleeting touch. I can tell. Thank you, my husband. I love you more than anything. His brow twitched slightly and his gaze lingered on my face for a long time, his eyes seeming to hold 1,000 kinds of tenderness and affection. My heart skipped a beat the moment I met his gaze, but it quickly returned to normal. Throughout history, emperors have often been heartless. How could I possibly dare to bet that I'd be the one who's special? Because of Yuan-rong, Xiao Xuan was stripped of his position as crown prince. He took all his frustration out on her. According to the news that Chen Tao brought back, Yuan-rong was beaten until her face was black and blue and she suffered a miscarriage. My mother felt sorry for her and brought her back home, even going so far as to say she would rather support her for the rest of her life than let her daughter remain married. As Chen Tao spoke, a torrent of hatred surged unceasingly within me. Why is it that even though we're both your daughters, Yuan-rong gets all your love while I'm not worthy of it? In my previous life, it had been less than a month since I had married into the house of the Marquis of Yunning. Xiao Xuan attacked me with fists and feet simply because I spoke too loudly to the handsome young page standing next to him, covered in wounds. I went home to ask my parents to stand up for me. What did they say at the time? My mother said, "How could I have given birth to such a stupid pig-like creature as you? Even men need to be soothed when they're angry. If you can't keep your husband's heart, what good does it do to come crying to me?" My father said, "You're good for nothing. I never expected your marriage into the Marquis household to bring any benefit to our family. You've been married for less than a month, and yet you've been beaten to this state. You've brought shame upon the Yi family. These are my parents. Even though I've been their daughter for 2 lifetimes, they've never once shown me any special favor. Since they care so much about Yuan-rong, I'll make sure they watch her suffer more than death itself while they're struggling to save themselves." On the day of my third younger sister, Yi Wanqing's birthday, I asked the emperor for permission to return to the Yi family home. He held me tight, reluctant to let go. "You're not allowed to go." I turned around and soothed him in a gentle voice. "My little sister is turning 10. If I don't go back, I'm afraid no one in the Yi family will remember her birthday." "But I don't want you to leave." "What should I do?" the emperor said in a buzzing voice, his face pressed against my hair. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Who would have thought that such a tyrant, whose very name struck fear into people's hearts, could have this side to him? "If Erlang doesn't want to part with me, why don't you come back with me? With Erlang backing me up, I'll finally get to experience what it's like to call the shots in the Yi family." I kept her face in my hands and looked at him expectantly, blinking. He hesitated for just a moment, then gave my nose a little rub. "You little rascal. Since you're so eager, I'll grant your wish just this once. By the way, since it's third sister's birthday, I naturally must prepare a generous gift as well." I asked him excitedly what gift he was going to give me. The emperor pursed his lips and said with a mysterious look on his face, "I'm not telling you. You'll find out when the time comes." With the emperor's personal arrival, the entire Yi family was both delighted and apprehensive. The entire family knelt at the doorway, waiting to welcome His Majesty. Under the gaze of the crowd, the emperor personally lifted me out of the carriage. In the crowd, Yuan-rong raised her head slightly and glared at me with a look of hatred. I snorted derisively and walked right past her, brushing against the tip of her nose. "So, what if you hate me? You'll still have to kneel before me, won't you?" When I had the birthday gift for my third younger sister brought in, everyone's eyes widened in astonishment. Box after box of gold and silver jewelry, rare ornaments, and fine silks. It was all too much to take in. Even Yuan-rong, who had always been the favorite, had never seen so many such valuable items. My third younger sister held me in her arms for a long time and didn't want to let go. She knew I had come back to stand by her side. The emperor watched his sisters fawn over each other for a while with a smile, then cleared his throat softly. "I also have a gift for my third younger sister." The third younger sister looked up, her eyes crinkling with a smile. "Second sister, is it true? Did my brother-in-law, the emperor, give me a gift too?" Everyone in the room fell silent at once, staring at me in disbelief. "Your Majesty, what exactly is the gift you said you were going to give to third sister?" I still have no idea. The emperor nodded toward Eunuch Wang, who was standing nearby. Eunuch Wang pulled an imperial edict from his bosom. It was an imperial edict conferring the title of county princess upon third sister. I once told him that of the entire Yi family, only third sister had ever been kind to me. Her mother had died when she was very young, and life was hard for her as a little girl in the Yi family. He remembers everything I say, so he granted his third younger sister the title of county princess. With this status, even if the Yi family disliked her, they would still have to treat her well. I looked at the man standing before me with gratitude, and an indescribable emotion welled up inside me. If he weren't the emperor, perhaps we really could have lived happily ever after, just like in the storybooks. After my initial excitement subsided, I pretended I'd only just noticed Yuan Rong and asked with a smile, "Has my older sister come back to celebrate our third sister's birthday?" Yuan Rong gave an awkward smile. "Yes, Your Highness. That is correct." I deliberately reached out and pinched the back of the emperor's hand. "Didn't your brother-in-law come home with your sister today?" Yuan Rong looked at the faint fingerprint on the back of the emperor's hand, clenched her teeth, forced a smile, and replied, "My lord." Today, before she could finish, I cut her off decisively. "The emperor is here today, so there are some things I'd like to think through before I say anything." She paused for a moment, clenched her teeth, and as if she'd made up her mind to go all out, suddenly dropped to her knees. "Your Majesty, Xiao Xuan has no interest in women whatsoever, and he beats me at the drop of a hat. I simply cannot go on living with him. I beg your Majesty to show mercy and grant me an imperial edict of divorce." Yuan Rong wept uncontrollably. My mother stood nearby, wiping away her tears as well. The emperor merely glanced at them before turning to me. "What do you think, consort?" I had a warm smile on my face. "In my humble opinion, this marriage is essential." The emperor raised an eyebrow and smiled. "What do you mean by that?" I composed my expression and said sternly, "Although young master has gone astray, his wife is not without blame either. At a time like this, you as his older sister should patiently counsel him rather than be so quick to seek a divorce. I don't think young master is an unreasonable person. If you, sister, can comfort him and guide him patiently, I'm sure he'll get back on the right track. Besides, as far as the Yi family is concerned, father was recently demoted and had his salary reduced by the emperor for failing to raise his daughter properly. If word were to get out now that my sister is seeking a divorce, I'm sure the censors would have only just had a moment's rest, but would be kept busy all over again. Wouldn't that put the emperor in a difficult position as well? Besides, although my elder sister and I are both married, we still have a younger sister. If the Yi family were to produce a divorced woman, not only would it bring shame upon me, but it would also have a significant negative impact on my third sister's future marriage prospects. Dad, Mom, don't you agree? You want a divorce? I'm not going to let you have your way. Yuan Rong gritted her teeth, digging her fingernails into her flesh, and looked at me with a gaze that seemed laced with poison. I was absolutely over the moon. I just love the way she looks when she hates me but can't do anything about it. Upon hearing this, the emperor nodded solemnly. Indeed, my beloved consort, every word you have spoken is for my sake and for the sake of the Yi family. I am deeply comforted by this. Yi Ning, do you know why I have all this time refrained from exposing your past acts of deceiving the emperor and secretly substituting the candidates to be brought into the palace? Upon hearing this, my father immediately fell to his knees, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. Your Majesty, I was momentarily confused. I deserve to die 1,000 times. Never mind, the emperor said, waving his hand. If it weren't for Ninger's plea, I would certainly have sentenced you to death. My grandmother was both startled and frightened. After staying for only a short while, she began to feel unwell and hurried back to her own courtyard. With the emperor's approval, Yuan Rong was forcibly escorted back to the Marquis of Yunning's residence by the Yi family that very afternoon. The emperor still had state affairs to attend to, so I threw a tantrum and refused to budge, claiming I wanted to spend time with third sister. And that's how I finally persuaded him to let me stay one more day. Before he left, he insisted on leaving a few more palace maids for me, but I refused. In the end, I kept only Chen Tao and Chen Ning, my 2 personal maids. In the evening, my third younger sister and I were chatting in her room when my mother stormed in. Seeing her sullen expression, I snorted derisively, just as I expected. My dear mother is finally coming to call me to account. She shoved Chen Tao and Chen Ning aside, who had been standing in front of me, and asked angrily, "You know full well that Wan Rong isn't happy at the Ho family's estate, so why are you trying to stop her from getting a divorce?" I rolled my eyes. "Isn't it all thanks to you that Yuan Rong isn't doing well at the Marquisate? How dare you ask me that?" Mother. Perhaps my remark struck a nerve, because her eyes immediately welled up with tears. "That's right. If your father and I hadn't switched the two of you back then, all this boundless favor would belong to Wan Rong now. Since you know that everything you have today was originally taken from your sister, why do you treat her this way? Don't you feel guilty toward her?" For some reason, whenever I hear words like that now, I no longer feel anything at all. I looked at my mother with a scoff, my eyes filled with deep pity and disgust. "Yuan Rong is your favorite daughter. Her mother knows her character better than I do. Do you really think she'll be showered with favor if she enters the palace? That's nothing but a pipe dream. You're lying." My mother screamed hysterically, as if the louder she shouted, the more it would prove that I was wrong. "Wan Rong is 100 or 1,000 times better than you. She would never be as heartless and ungrateful as you, forgetting her parents and loved ones the moment she gained the emperor's favor." I couldn't help but burst out laughing until tears streamed down my face. Father and mother. Ask yourselves honestly, do you deserve to be called father and mother by me? How have you treated me all my life? And now you accuse me of being heartless and ungrateful. I feel nothing but hatred for you all. I wish you'd all die. Do you understand? Do you know why I stopped Wan Rong from getting a divorce? It's so that you can watch with your own eyes as Xiao Xuan torments her until she wishes she were dead. Let me tell you a secret, I said with a smile, leaning close to her ear. I've known for a long time that Xiao Xuan is into men, and I also know he's a sadist. That's exactly why I won't agree to Wan Rong's divorce. I want to keep her tied to Xiao Xuan forever so he can torment her and humiliate her. Haha. Just thinking about you having to watch your beloved daughter suffer like this fills my heart with such joy and satisfaction. My mother was completely enraged by what I said. With her eyes bloodshot, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. Smack. That sound was incredibly crisp, as if it had drawn upon all her strength. I just felt a buzzing sensation in my head, and in an instant, everything around me fell silent. As she slapped me, I fell heavily to the ground, and a warm sensation slowly spread beneath me, blooming into a bright red flower. I saw my mother's half-open mouth and her panicked expression. I saw the anxious expressions on Chen Tao, Chen Ning, and third sister's faces and their mouths moving up and down. When I woke up again, I found myself back in the bedroom I had lived in before entering the palace. The emperor stood by the bedside looking haggard. When he saw me wake up, he held me close with a look of concern and felt deeply guilty. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone at the Yi family's residence. I was far too careless, and that's why our child met such a tragic end. Ninger." As he spoke, his voice grew increasingly choked with emotion. Seeing the emperor like that, I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. But I don't regret it. I hate my parents, but they gave me life. But after living through 2 lifetimes, I finally met a man I want to give my heart to, and all I want is to live a good life. So I had no choice but to pay them back with my child's life. The couple were found guilty of plotting to murder the imperial heir, a crime deserving of the death penalty, and were sentenced to be beheaded after the autumn harvest. After the fall, they'll have plenty of time to watch Yuan Rong suffer a fate worse than death. After I pushed her down, Mrs. Ye's health began to decline. Upon hearing the news, she fell gravely ill and passed away less than a month later. 2 days before my parents were executed, I went in person to the Marquis of Yunning's mansion to pick up Yuan Rong. She looked haggard and had lost the carefree confidence that came with being the favorite she once was. She was covered in bruises and her left leg was lame. The moment she saw me, a hint of emotion finally flashed across her previously expressionless face. "You came to see if I'm dead, didn't you?" I looked at her and smiled cruelly. "You won't die just yet. But your dear father and mother are to be beheaded tomorrow. I've come to take you to see them one last time." Inside the carriage, Rong, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke up. Actually, you remember things from your past life too, don't you? I chuckled softly, neither confirming nor denying it. She laughed maniacally, tears streaming down her face. Inside the prison, my mother, overcome with emotion, grabbed Rong's hand and asked after her well-being, completely oblivious to the fact that her other daughter was standing right beside her. But no matter what she said, the other person remained silent. It wasn't until she knelt down and begged me to take better care of her older sister from now on that Rong finally lost her temper. I always thought that even though I wasn't as beautiful as Ning, as long as I had your favoritism, I would definitely be able to beat her. I've lived 2 lifetimes and I've been the one to lose both times. It's always been me. What's the point? What good is your love anyway? If it weren't for your favoritism and indulgence, I wouldn't have become so consumed by it, thinking the whole world would pamper and spoil me just like you did. Then I wouldn't have made the wrong decisions in both of my lifetimes. Mother, you've caused me so much suffering. Until the day she died, my mother never understood why her 2 biological daughters ended up hating her with a passion. After that incident, Rong gradually learned her lesson. She stopped throwing tantrums and was finally no longer beaten. Shortly thereafter, she and Xiaoshuan were found dead inside the house, each with a knife stuck in their chest. As for me, 2 years later, I became pregnant with a dragon child again and gave birth to a little princess without any complications. The year the princess turned 16, my imperial husband abdicated. My daughter became the ruler of Great Chu and an empress. And my husband and I have finally begun our carefree life of traveling the mountains and rivers and enjoying the pleasures of this world.